Hi, I'm Frankie Smith, founder of Frankie's, a financial education network dedicated to empowering you have the confidence to be bold with the financial decisions that you're making. And this is season 2 of Talking Frankly with founders and investors. In each episode, I talk to investors and founders about their own financial journeys, whether it be seeking investment opportunities, fundraising, pitching, scaling their businesses, all whilst juggling managing their personal finances. Through their stories, you'll hear insights that can help you on your own journeys. In this episode, I am joined by Andrea Reynolds, CEO and founder of Swoop, a business that is transforming the way that SMEs are accessing capital. Before launching Swoop in 2018, Andrea had spent 15 years in corporate finance. She is also a non-executive director at Berkshire Hathaway's European insurance business, and last year was named Businesswoman of the Year in the Irish Tatler. Join us today to listen to Andrea and her story, journey to date, and the lessons she's learned along the way. Welcome, Andrea.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. So before we get into the questions that I've put down today, can you tell our listeners who maybe haven't heard of Swoop a little bit more about the business and why you came to launch it?
Yes. Well, Swoop is a platform for small and medium business owners who have always struggled to wonder where they get capital for their businesses, why they get rejected for loans when they think their business is doing great, and always searching and never knowing what's out there. And so the idea behind Swoop was essentially we're all living on open data platforms now, whether that's your cloud accounting, your banking, company's house, where you register your business. All of these things are where your data lives. And so what I wanted to do was essentially through your data, come on to Swoop, you integrate your data, and in one fell swoop, we show you the finance that you're eligible for. We take care of the heavy lifting right through to being successful on your funding application. And then the next thing we do is help you find ways to repay that loan. So through analyzing your bank statements, etc., we're able to find cost savings for you. And so really it's a journey of, I did this for 15 years manually and thought there has to be a better way. How can we look after the consumer so well, yet we don't look after business owners who are the lifeblood of the economy? And so that's why I started Swoop. And as I say, it started from 15 years of working with business owners who were spending their evenings and their weekends and even Christmas days looking for funding.
Amazing. And was there a kind of pivotal moment? You spoke there about the fact that you've been working for 15 years, seeing a gap. But what was the point when you realised, no, I'm going to go for this now and I'm going to launch it?
Yeah, so I was working with some spin-outs out of McLaren, the Formula One company, and these were highly innovative businesses, but very capital intensive. And so I was looking for grant funding. I thought, surely there's some grants available for businesses like this. And I was really shocked at how inefficient the entire grant system of the UK was. You would spend ages searching. You'd be told there's 400 grants available for your business, and then you'd go through this long process and realize actually it wasn't a fit. And also when you get a grant, you also have to match it with other funding. So I'd have clients who would actually succeed in getting a grant, but then didn't have the other funding to actually be able to draw down on that grant. So it was that frustration. I used to be an auditor. I come from a political family. I thought something has to change here, and there's something wrong with this government if this is how they think they're helping small and medium businesses. So I did an audit of the grants system of the UK. I did freedom of information requests from the National Audit Office, and I worked out how much it was costing the taxpayer to create one job in the UK. And I presented my evidence in Downing Street and to the Department of Business, and they said, you're right, but we can't fix it. Someone else is going to have to build a system to fix it. And I thought, right, I better put my money where my mouth is. And that was the start of building Swoop.
What an amazing story.
Yeah.
And when you decided at that point you're going to create the business and launch Swoop, what was the first things that you did to get your business underway?
Yeah. So I came from a background of corporate finance. I understood my customers' pain points because I was living that pain myself on their behalf. I understood the market. I knew I had my access to lenders, the grant agencies, etc. So I understood that. What I didn't understand was tech. And I'm not your normal tech bro, as you can see. So I bartered essentially with two Google developers, and they were doing great work at Google, but their secret passion was to build a game. They wanted to go into gaming, and so I bartered with them that they would give me. They left their jobs to build this game. They would give me 2 weeks every month, and I would give them 2 weeks every month, where I would go and raise funding for their game. So I got them a grant, got them other funding, and they built my prototype for what is now Swoop. I then used that prototype and went for a competition called the Overseas Entrepreneurs Competition that was being run from the Irish development agency called Enterprise Ireland, and won my first 50,000 for that. Along that journey, met my co-founder, who had built a tech platform before, had just exited, and convinced him of the idea and brought him on board, got my first 50,000. And then we started on our raise for what was the Seed Enterprise Investment Scheme here in the UK.
And when you went on to that raise, how did you find that initial journey of pitching, and what sort of traction were you getting in those early days?
So, and I forgot to mention along the way, raised the startup loan as well. Okay. So the way that I talk to entrepreneurs about this is it's not pretty what you have to do in the beginning. It's like a patchwork quilt. You have to take pots of funding from literally anywhere you can get it. So started with a startup loan, won that competition for the first 50,000, then went and through the development work that I'd already done, got my first R&D tax credit refund. And I knew from being in corporate finance, you have to prove the market wants your product before you can go out to investors beyond your friends and family. And so I was able to show I was doing what the platform is doing manually, and I kept earning revenues that way. So it was like Wizard of Oz behind the scenes. I was actually doing a lot of it manually. It looked good, but nothing worked. Like from a tech perspective, but that was enough to prove the model. And so by the time I went out for SEIS, we had done almost 100,000 in revenue. And that's what I always say, try and be undeniable as an investment at each stage. So try and get beyond those proof points, and then your raise will go faster. But then even with the SEIS, we had to go back. We matched that with Enterprise Ireland again. It was a constant a phase of finding these pots, as I say, and that's what it is. It's not pretty.
And I think it's interesting, I've also done my own fundraise and completely agree that it's a constant thing. You're looking all the time at different funding options and when's the next raise going to be necessary, etc. And I think that it's not that kind of tick box. You did your SEIS and you're away. Yeah. What was your biggest challenge during that time that you found from kind of getting the business off the ground initially?
I think it was the tech side of things, not coming from a tech background, learning the language. You misspend because you're believing when you hire somebody, you hire an agency, etc. And so things don't work out the way you anticipate them to, and you don't understand why. So you can waste a lot of money that way. And then it's, what direction do I go? So I actually spent a lot of time, a lot of weekends learning all about tech, learning about coding, learning about the different platforms, learning what I should expect from a development agency and how to monitor them to understand whether I'm going to get what I think I'm going to get. So I would say that was the biggest challenge at the beginning. But once you get past, there's a tipping point, I think, when things start to become more stable. You make your mistakes. I always say raise at least 50% more than you think you need. Do not burn your cash on willy-nilly anything,
Yeah.
because you're going to really need it.
Yeah.
So that, I think that for me was the biggest learning curve I had personally had to go through. I'm sure it's different for every entrepreneur.
Yeah. And do you have certain, along that kind of early stage journey, were there certain backers that came on that have now stayed with you on the journey? And was there anything that you looked in those investors beyond the capital?
Yes, we are, I would say, one of the luckiest companies, but you make your own luck. You have to be attractive to those investors at the beginning. We attracted, the first investors we attracted were entrepreneurs themselves. And they believed in my co-founder and I. They believed that together our energy, our knowledge of the pain point of our customer, they call us yin and yang. And so they backed us. And I think that's what happens at the beginning. You have to show the market wants your product. But my gosh, 100,000 in revenue isn't exactly, major proof points here. So we got early investors for entrepreneurs, our SEIS investors. It's a funny story. I do a lot of funding masterclasses for businesses. And there's a phrase I always use, and it's be money ready all the time. If you're money ready all the time, it means you're running your business properly. It means that you are looking at the right data points for your business, and you never know who you're going to meet. And this is what happened to us. My co-founder was at the coffee station. We were in a co-working space, and there was a guy standing there, and he said, "We're curious, like, what is it that you guys do?" And he said, my co-founder gave the pitch on what we do. This was the 2nd of April, so 2 days before the tax year end, when SEIS investments need to be done for the season. And he said, "Oh, that's super interesting. We actually have a small amount of funds, 25,000 left, that we need to deploy. I mean, I doubt we'll get it done now, but hey, be interesting." Well, I get the call. I'm like, "Here you go." I had everything ready. I was money ready. And they couldn't believe that we had all of that done. And we closed with them. Had never met them. And it's the first time we met them, we'd also entered a grant competition.
Right.
And then the first time we met them, we were there to tell them the news. We just won this grant competition. So they were like, "This is the best investment of non-due diligence we've ever done." And they've been with us ever since and have been one of our key lead investors all the way. And we all tell that story. The water cooler moment actually is true. It can happen. So we've just had exceptionally loyal investors. And that's really helped us through our journey. And we just closed around with our first strategic VC investor in the US to help us with our growth there. And interestingly, we found out about them through one of our first investors. So we've been surrounded by a really supportive network.
Yeah. What an amazing story.
Yeah.
It's, as you say, always be ready to...
And I have another funny one. During COVID, we were raising during COVID. And, at that point, a business like ours would be typically going out to the US looking for funding. So we did this kind of speed dating VC pitch. We were both in our kitchens during COVID. And there was a VC pitch going on through Miami, and we got some amazing investors through that. And we had 3 minutes to pitch. And we went through this really intense due diligence really quickly with one of the investors on that. And then we received a letter to say, "You need to sign this NDA. It's a Hollywood actor." Who is invested in. I can never tell you who it is. But we were like, here we are in our kitchen tables, in our gym gear during COVID, pitching. And we ended up with an incredible investor on our cap table through that 3 minutes. So you never know. That's be money ready. You never know
who you're going to meet and where you're going to meet them. And what's your favourite thing about the business that you've built to date?
The people. It's so much fun. I always say, if you feel like you're coming into work at Swoop, it's time for you to do something else. And I mean that sincerely. And I encourage some people to go and try other things because it's just, I I was in corporate finance. I was in a big four firm. I loved it up to a point, and then one day it just started being work, and life's too short. And so I always say, if you're not being challenged, if you're not having fun, if you're not kind of really looking forward to your day. Now, look, we all have bad days and bad months, etc. But on the whole, if you're not enjoying it, don't be here anymore. Go do something else. And for me, it's just first of all, you have to galvanize people to believe in your dream, in your mission, in what you think you can do to make impact in the world. You gather these people around you, and they're like, "Okay, I'm on board here." But actually, as your business grows, the role completely changes, and then you have to make sure you try and retain that camaraderie. And I know everyone says the word culture, but for me, it's about the family network, the feeling inside. We have very, very tough conversations. We expect a lot from each other, but it's fun. It's really good fun. So that for me is the key bit. The second bit is the why I believed in this in the first place. We had a business owner call us. We just funded him, and he called us on a Friday. It was the last Friday of the month. And he said, "I just want you guys to know, everyone in my business has gone home. They've paid their mortgages. They're probably going out for a meal tonight, and they have no idea how close it came to me not being able to meet payroll." He'd basically had a big customer who went down that month. He couldn't get his cash flow back to make his normal payments. And he was like, "I just want to take you all out for a pint." And for me, that was the proudest moment ever, because that's why we exist. Yeah. It's that survival, growth, everything that you need to be doing, regardless of where you are. You don't need to be in London. You can be in Cumbria and still have the same access to funding within a few clicks. And so, that was probably one of my proudest moments.
Such an inspirational story. And also, again, coming back to that network of, entrepreneurs needing to have access to other entrepreneurs who are all going through similar pain points and on similar journeys.
Yes.
What a great story. Do you think that there's been any kind of financial lessons from you personally that you wish you'd known before launching the business, or have really been taught in, obviously you've mentioned be money ready and not kind of willy-nilly spending your cash, but has there been anything that really kind of you learnt in the early days and you're carrying you through?
Yeah, I another one that I would suggest, and I do suggest to everybody, is when you start your business, you should first of all register it as a limited company, and the second thing you should do is open a business bank account. Now, even if you are financing that business, which I did, I actually sold my house and put all of my cash into an instant cash account, and just left it there in case, because I did not want my business to fail because it ran out of cash just because something unforeseen happened. But for me, I was also financing the business. I was still continuing to do some corporate finance work, and I was using those revenues to pay into my little startup. You should never just make those payments out of your personal account. You're trying to show, when an investor comes in, when you want to take a loan out for your business, etc., that there's value being created in your business. And so often I see businesses, when it's a little bit too late, where they've been just taking it out of their own personal account. And the problem with that, particularly when you're paying for tech development or some research into your business, is you can't claim that back on your R&D tax credits. So formalizing everything, and you can put it in as a director's loan. Now, what will happen is investors will come along and they'll say, well, you need to convert that into capital. But you're showing the value of the risks that you took, the investment that you made in the business before anyone external came along. And again, if you're spending that on research and development, you can then put in for your tax R&D tax credit refund. So that, I would say, is one of the most primary goals. And start running it formally from day one, even if it's just yourself. So get on an accounting software. Most banks now have an add-on of an accounting software, but make it formal from day one.
And what I mean, what a step to kind of sell the house and, you're all in. Do you think that that's kind of sharpened your mind and changed the way that you operate as a business owner?
Yeah, I just I wanted to sleep better at night, if I'm really honest. I wanted to sleep better. I didn't want to feel like I couldn't make a mortgage payment because I'd overstretched on the business. I didn't want to feel that I would have to take a bad deal from an investor or take out a credit card or something like that. That's another one. Oh, God. Funding your business through credit cards and overdrafts is not a good idea. So for me, it was just more peace of mind and saying, like, I'm, again, putting my money where my mouth is. I truly believe in this. And to this day, I still have it sitting there. It's only this year that I've now been convinced by a financial advisor to start making plans and start actually thinking about my own life again. Because for me, this is my life. Yeah. So,
and I think that's a really important point, because actually as a business owner, often you can kind of get into the weeds of growing the business and you're scaling and seeing that vision.
Yeah.
But actually it's important to look at you as from a personal perspective and make sure that you're getting that growth and that and doing that personally as well. So exciting part of the journey for you. Do you think that what do you think are the biggest blockers for others who are seeking finance? And what would you say to anybody who's raising capital at the moment?
Yeah. Your personal credit score is key. Your business credit score and your personal credit score are absolutely key. And so when you're normally applying for a loan, let's say for your business, you may not understand at all. Well, you're probably thinking, well, look, there's some cash left in the business at the end of every month that could make my repayments. So there's a lot of black box stuff that goes on when you are putting yourself out there to, let's say, take out a loan, for example. There are also just so many different rule sets around different types of loans, which is why we exist, because the non-bank lending market is the second largest in the world here in the UK. That's wonderful from a supply perspective, but who the heck knows that these things actually exist? So the type of product you take out can really have an impact on your business, which is when I say credit cards, overdrafts might seem easy, but they're the worst thing to run your business. So there's a product that matches every project need that you have for your business, whether it's cash flow, whether it's growth, etc. So personal and credit score are probably, I would say, if not the first things that these lenders look at. In addition to, do you have cash at the end of the month? So that's the first thing. Second thing is, when you are going out for investment, just think about, if it was your money, would you believe this? Would you take the risk of this? And that's when I go out to the market with my co-founder, we're always saying, okay, what would I be, devil's advocate, what would I be asking? And we need to go fix that. So, we've just closed our round, but now we're saying, okay, well, in 18 months, we want to go for another round. We want to be profitable by then. But what other data points will they be scrutinizing at that point for us to be undeniable? And so we're now starting our work on making sure our data room, everything is up to scratch, and we will build our metrics towards that next milestone. It's a good way to look at your business, because we think we've the prettiest baby in the world, and we all think, how can people not see what we're seeing? Yeah. So it's really important to stay critical of your business.
But also, I think it's really important point, the length of time it takes to get these things ready and right.
Yes.
18 months out, you're already thinking about your next raise. So there's a lot of time that people listening need to be aware of from a raising perspective, how long it takes.
And in particular in today's market, the capital that was there is no longer as readily available. And so it's a tougher environment, but I would say a more realistic environment. Yeah. And it's not going to change anytime soon. So it's just adjusting to that and just being as undeniable as you can be.
Yeah. And, you know, the stats are terrifying when you look at the amount of women that are funded. And it's still under 2% of venture capital in the UK going to female founders. Have you ever found that's come up against you as a challenge during fundraising? And also, sorry, two questions in one. Do you think being a woman helps, you know, what advantage do you think that gives you when you're leading your company?
So on the first question, I've never had any problems on that front. Now, the reason is I think it's about us as women, what our mindsets are going into the room. So I don't see male or female when I walk into a room. I worked with a lot of engineering businesses out of McLaren. They were typically male, gender heavy. It never bothered me, and it doesn't bother me walking into a room of whether it's all men, all women. So I think we have a responsibility to ourselves to go in with the right mindset and do not get perturbed by whatever might be said to us. The second thing is I started a fintech business. I didn't start a business that I know from others who've started businesses that are relevant to females. They have a much tougher time because typically the guy sitting opposite them in a VC has no understanding of the market opportunity of that product. It was I heard some stories around this where they were finding it very, very difficult it's called Lovecrafts, and they were finding it very difficult to get VCs to understand the opportunity. And they thought, it's just a bunch of knitting and embroidery. And then they eventually got an analyst to do the work and realize the global market opportunity. And when they came back to her, she'd already raised her 50 million that she needed, and one of the most successful businesses. So I do think female founders of particularly topics that are related to female gender struggle. But I think it's naturally changing. Some of it will come from quotas. Some of it will come from quotas within VCs. But also sustainability is becoming one of the biggest themes in investment, VC and private equity investment. And if you look, there's a lot of female founders in sustainable related businesses. So I think the flow of capital based on where capital is now going will start to course correct that percentage. But on a personal level, I see it as an opportunity. I see it as I'm walking in here. My business, first of all, needs to merit the funding. And I need to go in with the right mindset. And I need for them to be very impressed about female founders by the time I'm leaving. And I'm in the back of my head thinking, come on, you must be thinking about you need to make some investments into female founders. I think it's up to us to have the right mindset.
And I think the opportunity piece is so important because actually, rather than hearing all the negative, it's as you say, it's for us to do something about it.
Yes.
And hopefully it's on top of everyone's agendas. So we should be seeing some significant changes over the next couple of years.
The more successful we have, the more female founders we have. I think, look, it was a pipeline issue to begin with. Yeah. I don't think it was all got to do with prejudice. Again, I think there was a pipeline issue. Yeah. Whereas now, I just meet so many female founders in the fintech arena. It's awesome. Yeah. And so it's becoming the norm, seeing female founders now. And I think that pipe just needed to emerge.
Brilliant. Perfect. And can you share with us a little bit around kind of your routine? And obviously you're now running this scaling business that's moving beyond the UK and going global. Yeah. How do you personally manage that pressure? Is there anything that you do kind of for yourself which helps you in your weekly routine?
Yes, I try. There is this thing they call the rushing woman, and that how we're not doing ourselves any favors by being this constant rushing woman. So I start my day on a personal level. I take my time, I meditate, I do yoga, I get some exercise in, I have my breakfast. and I do those things in a very solitary way to just ground myself before the day starts. And then I kind of really focus on, okay, what are the key things I need to do today for the business to drive it forward? Because there's a lot of noise that goes on. And if I just write it down in a notebook before I start the day and then look at it at the end of the day and say, did I do those things? And if I didn't, then the beginning of the next day needs to be about, I need to get back on track with those, and then allow the rest of the noise to go on. But I will have certain things that absolutely need to be done to drive the generally the revenue of the business or the people aspect of the business. And then I feel good about myself at the end of the week. And weekends are all nature, walking dogs, all of that to ground myself again. It's difficult when you're on a plane a lot of the time. I try and get to wherever I'm going at least a day before to again have a day of adjusting. So I'll fly on a weekend and kind of spend the weekend there so I'm ready for the Monday morning, not fly in and start the first thing on the Monday morning, and try and get a yoga session in or something just to keep myself grounded. But look, that all sounds wonderful, doesn't it?
And it isn't in an ideal world.
It's just
but
it's a struggle for everyone.
And I think it's getting that balance, isn't it? And it's not always going to be 100% of the time, but we set with good intentions and try to get that going properly. Is there been anything that's been a really kind of pivotal, difficult time for you in the business? And how did you find yourself tackling that in a certain way and it's really changed you as a leader? Have you ever had any kind of real challenges that have...
Well, I think a couple. The first would have been COVID. We're obviously a platform that deals with access to finance for business owners. So we had two things happen. We had a huge surge in businesses coming to our platform because they weren't getting answers from their bank. And then on the other side, we had government schemes like the Bounce Back loan scheme where there was no business model for us. There was no revenues we could earn from that. So typically our model is we will get you your funding and we take a piece of the arrangement fee that the lender usually takes because we've done the work for them. So they reduce their cost of transaction because of the work that we do for them. But they weren't charging that on the bounce back loan. So we had two things happen. Surge in customers. We then pivoted to actually show businesses, here's how you get your bounce back loan, or here's how you get your C-bills loan, which was the other scheme above the 50,000. So we were solving for all these businesses during COVID, but we ourselves could not earn revenue from that. So that was a super challenging time. We were just trying to get our business off the ground, but we survived it. We got sponsorship. We won another grant during that time, and it really helped us dig deep and build our tech in a better way. But it wasn't a fun time. It was very, very stressful. You're also trying to fill roles. So you're hiring everyone remotely. And I would say post-COVID, it was a very strange thing because we had this remote only team. We'd never met each other. And so trying to rebuild those connections
and the culture
post-hiring and the culture, that's been an odd one. And then the second one I would say that I've found challenging, and I think just getting really to grips with it this year, is that part of going international while also retaining your strength in your domestic market, in your home market, and keeping the culture within your team, and then trying to build a similar culture in a country, a different time zone. It's not an easy thing. It's really not. So, and I don't think anyone cracks that perfectly. But I would say they're the 2 points where,
challenging parts. And are you having to now put teams in place in those international areas that you're moving into?
Yes, but very slowly. We don't go to a country and say, yay, we're here, let's throw loads of marketing dollars at this and make a song and dance about it. We're very quiet and stealth-like in our approach, because you need to take it slowly at the beginning to really get to understand, well, what's your customers' culture and behavior like? What's your partners? What are the lenders like? And then hiring slowly so that you don't have this big chasm between your home team and another team. You never want that them and us scenario. So you try and bed in everyone slowly but surely. So I wouldn't say we're intent on building a huge team globally. I think you can serve a lot of your markets centrally these days. But what you can't serve is that localization of tone of voice, content, and just having partners there on the ground to show up and say, we're actually here permanently, not just over on a visit.
And I think that's, talking about tone of voice, it's fascinating, isn't it? How different jurisdictions have such different operating models. I was recently in the UAE, and you're seeing so many billboard adverts because they drive everywhere.
That's right.
So they see a lot of content through that way.
Yes.
Compared to, you wouldn't see that in London because most people are just walking or getting the tube, or it's a different model, isn't it? And it's interesting how you have to adapt. Just last couple of questions from me. What do you think is your magic spark? If you had to say in kind of couple of words, what's the magic spark of Swoop? What's your magic spark?
I would say, as entrepreneurs, my co-founder and I have absolute optimism, even in the face of reality sometimes. We are just deeply, deeply optimistic people. And I think that if there was one ingredient, I would say that you really require, and by the way, I've been doing this a long time. It's not just with Swoop, I'm working with a lot of founders. You just sheer optimism. And I would say just bringing that optimism into the team also gives them a lift when they're having a bad day. It's not fake optimism. It's just you really, really believe in what you're doing. And then for Swoop, the message we always get from our businesses that we help and engage with is our empathy. We're not, it's quite an intimidating thing going out to raise money. And so if you've got someone in your corner that's saying, oh, by the way, that's what that means. And before you go for a loan, don't, because here's what they're going to say to you right now. So that you're not putting yourself out there and getting rejected, that you feel more in control of when to go for your funding, what to do when they ask you something you haven't a clue what that phrase means. Because it's a journey we're all on. We didn't all set up our businesses to be finance experts. We set up our businesses to solve a pain point and look after our customers. And along the way, suddenly you're supposed to be this finance expert, and it's just not true, So we try and make sure everyone feels empowered, regardless of what they get from the Swoop platform.
Brilliant. And last question, you mentioned earlier that you spent your weekends kind of reading up on tech and trying to kind of get yourself shored up on that side. Is there any kind of books or mentors or people that you would recommend that really helped you on your journey?
Yes. So I love a good business book. And I love reading about other entrepreneurs who are further on in the journey than Swoop is. And so my favorite book is The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. And what I loved about that book is he's walking you through, when he essentially had to let go 90% of his workforce, try and retain the 10% and galvanize them around the idea, even though the dot-com bubble had burst. And so it's about, if you're going to be a founder and a CEO, the hard thing is there's hard things you have to do. So I love that book. Another one I'm reading at the moment is Good to Great, and High Output Management is a phenomenal book. High Output Management is the one that every Silicon Valley founder has read. It's the Intel story. And I actually am trying to really use that book to help me in this stage of our scaling. That and Good to Great I'm using for the scaling phase now, because it's about process and scalability, whereas the other is about the entrepreneurial journey. Yeah. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been very inspirational to hear your journey, and wishing you all the success on the next phase. Thank you.